good evening, and welcome to the Super License F1 podcast. My name's Rodney.
And my name is Zach.
How are you going, Zach? I feel like these races come thick and fast, and I keep asking you every week how you're going. I don't know if your life changes that much in a week, but how's your life going?
Well, my life's going well. I was a little bit stressed because I was like, got to get the recording done today because there'll be, we've got to get it out so that people can listen to it before the next race happens. And then this is one of the off weeks, Rod. Mm-hmm. Welcome to non-race week, which is the odd one now. It's
hashtag it's not race week.
Yeah, exactly. We're a week and a half away from Russia, from Mother Russia's big, important, extra exciting race that I'm sure it will be. But instead, we can really luxuriate and take our time over the Sangiovese-inspired Tuscan Grand Prix. I actually hate that grape, and I don't like Chianti Classico wine, which is the wine of Tuscany. It's junk.
I was going to ask
about
you
it.
what you thought about that.
It's not very good. It's not very good. Although it does, quite famously, the black cock is the sign of really good Chianti Classico Tuscan wine. Not for me. But this race was for me. How was your week, though, Rod? I'm sure that you didn't have to stay up super late watching this one.
So late. This was the latest one so far. And boy, yeah, my endurance levels were being tested. It wasn't even an endurance race.
Those 5Gs.
Yes, that's what it was. I feel like I could feel it, like having to hold my neck up. It felt like I was having 5Gs go through my neck. I nearly battled on the end of the race. I don't usually do that. If I'm sitting up for a race, I usually stick it through, but boy, this one was tough and just made it across the line. I wouldn't have been able to, I didn't have enough fuel in the tank for a wind down lap, but yeah, I would have just dribbled across the line and then had to pull over on the grass.
Pull over straight into the pits or onto the grass. I mean, what are, you and I have a long, deep history of chatting snacks on this show to either listeners' chagrin or to their pure love. What keeps Rod going now through a long race? Are you still on the Snickers pods or no?
Snickers pods are an occasional thing, and I always do think of you. I associate you with Snickers pods when I'm watching F1, but they're a rarity these days, as is watching a race with you. I hate a lot of the salt and vinegar chips for whatever reason. That's the snack du jour at our place at the moment.
Oh, that's good.
You got any go-tos?
Well, I try to get a beer from the region. No luck this time, because my off-license didn't have that many. So I got myself an Ichnusa non-filtrata, which is actually a Sardinian beer, which is still Italy, although the Sardinians might have something to say about whether they feel as Italian as, or whether they aren't Catalan or something like that. But I did have an immense array of Italian meats and a few Italian cheeses from our local Italian deli up the road, which I'll give a shout out to Da Mario in Highbury. Absolutely delightful. They were so kind in there. Some delicious bread as well. And we had these gnocchi that had brie, which is not an Italian cheese, and speck inside them. And they were they were the size of like duck eggs, each gnocchi, sorry. So good. With a nice pesto sauce. Oh, delightful. So yes, a very Italian snack heavy and meal heavy day at my house.
Sounds very heavy. You would have slept well that night.
Oh, so well. Basically fell asleep after the race. Just like, just like you did. But it was only 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon for me.
Well, that's outstanding, and I applaud you. We do have a lot to get through today, so I'm going to introduce a couple of quick notes before we get into the race recap, because big news, Sebastian Vettel signed off to Racing Point, as we all kind of knew, and it seemed to be a bit of a surprise to old mate Sergio Perez, who was like, what?
He hasn't been listening to our show.
It's like, dude, have you not been paying attention? But yeah, confirmed Vettel to Racing Point. Sergio Perez to question mark. He's got a couple of options. I guess the most likely ones are Haas and Alfa Romeo. What do you think, Zach?
Well, I agree with you. Yeah, I think that Sergio Perez should have known that was happening, but he was trying to be super cool and confident and be like, why would they ever replace me? Surely they'll dump the owner's son before they dump me. I mean, they're not even giving Sergio Perez like upgrades for his car anymore. They're just giving them to Lance and being like, well, if you break them, which you probably will, we've got spares. Aren't they Sergio spares? Nah, fuck him. We're just going to put him out in a Fiat 500 and see how he goes.
Never understand that, why they go, well, we've designed all these amazing parts. Only brought enough for one car though. It's like, dude, like it would have taken barely no extra effort for you to just make 2.
Yeah, just buy a second 3D printer. For God's sake, just get him going. No, I feel sorry for Sergio Perez because I think he's a good racer. I would prefer to have him in the sport than not. I mean, there is talk always with every Formula One driver going off to, Formula E. There was talk about him going to America to race in IndyCar, which could be a thing, along with Max Chilton. Such a great Formula One graduate as Max Chilton. I know, what a throwback. I don't think Sergio Perez will go that far. I think that Haas will snap him up. If they could have 2 Sergio Perez's, they probably would take them at this point. So, yeah, I think that's where it will go. Sebastian Vettel to Aston Martin. I mean, has Sebastian Vettel ever been marketable? No, that was one of the reasons, like one of the things that Red Bull probably found frustrating about him. When he wasn't winning, he was just kind of nothing. And he wasn't the young upstart anymore. He was just a guy in his late 20s who was kind of boring and not really a good reflection of the Red Bull brand. Goes to Ferrari, also not really winning much, except maybe in his first season. They come second. Again, he's not that marketable. He's not like super energetic or super suave. He's just kind of a nerdy F1 driver. So again, it's like, all right. So is Aston Martin the brand most associated with characters such as James Bond? Sebastian Vettel, could you see him appearing in ads like that with Daniel Craig? You know, is Sebastian Vettel going to be the getaway driver for Daniel Craig? No, I don't think so. So yeah, I think this is a weird fit. And I don't think he'll do that well at Aston Martin. So yeah, that's my call. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think that they're hoping that they're signing, you know, on form, former world champion Sebastian Vettel. I'm just worried that what they're going to get is off form, old man, non-charismatic, old man Seb Vettel. So we'll see, I suppose.
Yeah.
Sergio Perez, yeah, I don't know. You can get a Haas, I suppose, just because I badly want the Haas drivers to be updated. So yeah, there's that. That's how that'll shake out, because that's what I want to happen mostly. One more point that I want to get into, though, before we get into the race, which is big congrats to young Australian youngster Oscar Piastri, who, oh man, I'm butchering everything. I'm going to have to bail on that whole sentence and start again. Congrats to Aussie youngster Oscar Piastri, who won the Formula 3 title. Old Melbourne boy, well, young Melbourne boy, really, but joins a very illustrious title. I didn't even realize, but you look through the list of the last 10 years and the number of drivers who went on to race in F1 and do pretty well, pretty good. So, potentially very big things. He'll be off to F2 next year, and then we'll see how that goes. But yeah, good things from the old Aussie racing stocks.
Again, I just think to any Australian Formula One fan, who was born, you know, after kind of like 1995, would just be like, oh yeah, it's pretty normal for Australia to have a Formula One driver on the grid all the time. No, it's not. It's amazing. If this if we get another nice little handover to Oscar when Daniel Ricciardo's aging and driving around in the Alfa Romeo when he's 35, and Oscar comes through and is the new, you know, Red Bull boy or whatever it is, that would be great for Australian fans. I think it's nice to have an Australian on the grid. I think it adds a bit more flavor as well to the like international appeal of Formula One. Like, it's meant to be a diverse grid. I would love to see more drivers from more countries on the grid, not just like this Eurocentric field. So, are
you telling me we don't need 4 more British drivers on the field?
Oh, and I would love them to be super hyped by the commentary team as well.
That'd be great.
No. Difficult, but yes, congratulations to young Oscar. I'm looking forward to seeing him. I've muted basically all hashtag F3 and F2 stuff on Twitter, so I don't really see any of it. Sorry everybody. I'm just not interested enough in it to have my feed filled with that all weekend. I can barely get to
it is problematic. Stuff. When you follow, I mean, you can follow Formula One specific teams or accounts, but then there are some accounts that are just motorsport, and you go, yeah, okay, I'll give that a follow. Cool. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, big news, so-and-so is going to be in practice session for Formula 3. And I'm like, I don't care. Who cares? I don't give a shit.
Who are you? Yeah, I don't know. I don't recognize any of the names here. I don't know the team. I don't know the race. I don't know the drivers.
It's just too far out of the bubble that I like to stay in. That's what I'm trying to say. I was just kidding about that. Come back when you're Australian. Anyway, oh boy, we should reverse out of this as fast as we can. Maybe we should get into our race cap. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to learn to talk eventually.
No, don't do it.
Maybe we should get into our race recap for the Tuscany Grand Prix.
Let us race a bit. I gave him space.
Save my balls, mate.
Let's hurry up and get out of here. We've got a race to do.
And by maybe we should do that, I mean, we should definitely do that. Zach, lots of action. I mean, there's plenty of places you could go with this, but it's your turn in the rotation to do the 30-second recaps. So I hope you've been stretching your mouth and talking muscles, whatever they are. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's do it.
we thought it was all on because Bottas suddenly got a great start. And it was like, oh my God, this could be the race. Bottas is just going to cruise to victory. And then we got to corner 3 and everyone was like, we're just going to drive like 5 cars wide all through these complicated corners. And immediately, you get that shot where the back of the field just lights up in dust and debris. That's what we got. So we had to stop the race there. We had a nice restart and then it all kind of came back. Hamilton took back the lead and was like, back to usual and that's all going to be fine. And then we got another crash at the end and we had to do a different kind of restart. Everybody crashed again and it was all bad.
And who won?
Nowhere near it. And then, somebody finished on the podium that we like and we'll come to them.
That's true. No, I really
too hard.
You did a great job. You fit so many words into that. So many. On pure number, that's impressive.
That's what it's about. How many words can you say?
Mm-hmm. The final podium was Hamilton, Bottas, and Albon, but that doesn't really tell the story. So right off the jump, I think you totally nailed it. I was super excited to see Bottas just storming away. As always, the commentary, for every good thing they do 5 bad things. One of the bad things that they do is if Hamilton does poorly, they emphasize how much how well everyone else did. Or if Hamilton does well, they just emphasize how well he's going. So it's very Hamilton focused. But you could tell that Hamilton was super slow compared to not just Bottas, but Verstappen and all the other cars. When you see that overhead shot, you could just see Hamilton just got bogged down in the second phase of his start. So it wasn't that Bottas did an amazing start. He just did a good start, and Hamilton did not do well. But that was the only out of many starts that he didn't quite get right. The others he got extremely right. But it was a real stop-start race, and I'm not surprised at the end Sebastian Vettel was scratching his head going, do we have to do another restart now? Or what's going on here? Because I feel like I've just been restarting all day. Bottas led for a little bit of the race, but then, big incident in the early corners that led to a safety car knocked out Max Verstappen, which was a shame because that's most of the time that's like, well, that's where the competition's going to be. With him out, what's this race going to be? I don't know if you were thinking that.
I was. I mean, he had trouble. He had trouble when he did the grid formation lap. The lap that gets you to the grid before the formation lap. So the whatever they call it.
What do they call that? Oh man, I feel like every week
installation lap.
Installation lap. That sounds right. Yeah.
Also, last week it was race director. Was what we were.
Yeah, I've got it in big letters here. We're not going to miss it.
Oh yeah, sorry, shit.
That's all right.
Yes, stealing your thunder there, but yes, it was. The installation lap, and then Max was like, I'm getting weird intermittent power, and they're like, we'll fix that for you, don't worry about it. And then he starts, and it's a great start, incredible start, and then he goes to, he's jamming his finger down on the battery, go, 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 coming up to like the first corner, and everybody's just driving past him, just not going anywhere. And so as we're moving into like the third and fourth corners, as I said in the beautiful recap I did, trying to fit too many cars into those corners, and Pierre Gasly, race winner, goes for a gap that is just not there, that I'm pretty sure is Kimi Räikkönen and somebody else. Like yes, that little gap is there when you first see it, but just dives into it as everybody starts to brake and turn. And they, like the two drivers he's getting in between, there's barely a room for one car, let alone as soon as they start to like move off the current lines that they're on. It seemed like a really inexperienced move, I want to say, a move that was too hopeful. You're meant to back out of that one because it's a long race. It's really early in the race. So, keep your car okay, keep cool, and try to get a better exit and see if you can get the move done there. But goes into a gap that just immediately closes. He gets like halfway into it and it just disappears and everybody crashes. After that, Verstappen gets caught up in that and he's out. I think he would have probably struggled through the whole race anyway if he's got no power delivery. Maybe they could have fixed it. Maybe they thought that's what was going to happen, that the sensor would kind of click into gear, something like that. Or that they'd be able to like cancel that sensor or something. I don't know. So we don't know what much hope was there, but it cleared the way for his teammate, Alexander Albon, who made the overtakes later in the race when he needed to, but kind of kept his nose clean and managed to stay out of everything. And this was more like the performance I think that Red Bull were hoping for. It's more... The problem with Alex Albon is he wasn't even really doing the Bottas performance like that Bottas does at Mercedes, which is that at least is there at the front. Albon was still down in sixth too often recently, but now, race like on the weekend at the Tuscany Grand Prix is that he was in the mix enough that they could have a positive or aggressive race strategy that wasn't kind of too well, let's just finish you in the points and don't push too hard. Does that make sense?
It does. I think you're right. I think after winning and then qualifying and getting eliminated in Q1, he was like, I'm going to make up places. You just watch me on the start. And yeah, kept his foot in when he should have been getting completely out of it. It's okay to go kind of 3 wide into turn 1 because everybody is in a totally different mindset. But by the time you get to turn 3, it's time to be thinking, okay, these 3 cars wide is going to turn into 2 cars wide, which is going to turn into 1 car wide very quickly. So you just can't go for those kind of gaps. And he learnt the hard way. A bunch of cars did get knocked down, and there was a safety car, which we followed around for a little while. And then we got to this safety car restart, which then led to a red flag. And this is what you saw at the 6 o'clock news, the highlights, the big crash.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can go over what sort of happened, but essentially Bottas waited right until the start-finish line to floor it, which is not what you would normally do in an F1 race, but that doesn't mean he was necessarily in the wrong. We'll dissect it a bit further in a second, but he waited until the very last second, which meant everyone behind him couldn't overtake the person in front of them. So there was a concertina at the front where everyone was sort of thinking, are we going? Are we stopping? Are we going? We're going, we're stopping. We're going, we're stopping. And in the midfield, some drivers were trying to sort of floor it and then had to get out of it and either couldn't brake in time and pulled out of the way. And it was a bit like when you're kind of following someone really closely in a big crowd and there's a bollard in the middle of the road and let's say person A sees the bollard and moves to the side, but person B following doesn't see it, walks into it and completely knackers myself and ends up rolling on the ground with sore nads. It's a bit like that. Some drivers were pulling off to the side, but other drivers were like, whoops, can't brake now. And I'm straight into the back of someone. Very scary on board from colour signs in particular, but just carnage. Cars going everywhere. One car rolling along the side of the barrier with another one flying towards him, coming in backwards, almost T-boning him, a bit like when an ice hockey player checks his opponent into the glass or something. Some really scary stuff. And then confusion, and then who do you blame? So yeah, maybe react, and then we'll get into who do you blame.
Yeah, I mean, the reaction, I suppose, at the time was just like, oh, at least everybody's okay. You know, it was, it looks bad, you know, when to see basically Carlos Sainz is the perfect example. He floors it, and then the kind of, 2 cars move out of his way, and suddenly there's a car that's just in front of him that is stopped, essentially. Like it's like something from a video game or like a virtual reality ride or something. It's just like, oh my God. Like I tweeted that I was ducking on my couch, like jumping out of the way because I watched it 3 or 4 times. And I was just like, it just appears out of nowhere. It must have been so scary. So yeah, the restarting on a straight like this will always have that problem because, you know, usually what happens is that whoever's out the front picks a corner that they decide they're going to floor it off, you know, off the apex, get out of that corner. And it's like, now we're going. And everybody can see that because you're already you're always going to have to accelerate out of that corner that you're approaching. Then you just go, because that's what you expect to do. And everybody's kind of already in a line by then anyway. No one's really next to each other and nobody has anywhere else to go. So you just kind of go like, okay, well, we're all going to go. And then the next straight will start to try to overtake. Whereas this time you can get that stop start because there are places for people to try to, like, you know, people were kind of getting up next to each other and trying not to overtake. It's like, okay, if you go, I go, I'm going to try to look past you. Instead of looking at the car directly in front of me, I'm going to look further down the road and see when someone's going. So that leads to people to make the wrong call about when to go or not. And then it just a chain reaction at that point, right? Because you are waiting on the feedback from everybody else instead of like looking down at your dash for a like green light go. You know, it's amazing. What it made me reflect on is that it's amazing we don't get more crashes after rolling restarts from safety cars. It kind of amazes me that we always restart with a safety car like that. Perhaps we should do standing restarts more often, and maybe that's why we've been seeing red flags more often these days, is because it's like, all right, let's just get all the debris off the track, let's just start again. And I know that can disadvantage this person who's winning, because it's like, well, now you're just creating a massive opportunity for everybody else to overtake me if I fuck up the start. But that's racing, you know, that's just kind of how it has to go. So would you prefer more standing restarts, or do you think that the safety car restart, you know, with the rolling restart is the better way to go?
I think after a red flag, I'll go a standing restart just because it's something different. After safety car, I'm okay with a rolling restart, unless there's some reason not to. I think, I mean, there's a sort of excitement that comes from having the cars sitting stationary and then the red lights going off and all the rest of it. There is a certain skill to it. There's, if you're good at it and you only have to do it once a race, then that's fine. If you're bad at it and you only have to do it once a race, you could probably take that pain and think, well, at least I'll make up for it in the race. If you have to do it 3 times and you're bad at it, you might just get in your own head about it too much and be like, oh man, this sucks. I keep losing places on the starts because I'm so bad at them. But I guess the question really is it also exciting to have a rolling start? I kind of feel like it is because, I mean, once the safety car pulls in and then the lead car slows down and you can kind of, I mean, I get goosebumps at that moment too. And then you start to see like, when's he going to go? When's he going to go? And then he goes and you're like, go, yes. And, I mean, I find that just as exciting. I mean, it is almost always, by the time they get down to turn 1, it's almost always just everyone following through in a train. But I mean, I don't find that that's unfair because they were already in that order anyway. So it seems just to me anyway. But after this race, both Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas sounded off and said, here's what's going on here. The problem is that the safety car lights are getting turned off at the last possible minute. And the idea, well, their accusation was whoever's organizing all of this is trying to stop the leading car from doing that so that he can take off and pull out a big gap and there's no challenges further on. They both said that. And Bottas said, the team's been talking about this for a while. We even asked for clarification about why that was happening. And he said, we were told the equivalent of, yeah, they're trying to make the restarts more exciting. So they don't want the leader pulling out a big gap like that. They just want to make it closer if possible. I feel like there's something's just not right there. Michael Massey, this is what I make a note of. Michael Massey, which, yeah, turns out he's the race director, is that word we were fumbling for so awkwardly last week. He came out and said, that's absolutely not what's going on. That is ridiculous. Any accusation that we did that on purpose and made somehow the race unsafe and put people in the firing line, that's completely untrue. Yeah, you can call it offensive, that suggestion. So there's some cross wires there, but that's one problem they've got to untangle. The other thing I think they have to untangle is that this race, it was advantageous for the leading driver to wait until the last possible minute, which is what we saw, because the slipstream was so powerful through the first few corners and even through the middle section of the track, which is all flat out. It was so advantageous to not just take off. So, regardless of when the safety car light goes off, at that point, Bottas has a choice. Do I bolt it, floor it and go? Or do I crawl towards the start finish line and hit the pedal at the very last possible minute? And that's what he did. So that nullifies their argument altogether. So there's a lot going on there for a pretty minor thing. But as we saw at this race, sometimes minor things turn into major things.
Yeah, it's, you don't design a track and with the understanding that, okay, we've got to design it in a way that makes sure that if there is a rolling restart after a safety car, that it can work correctly. There has to be some common sense from the drivers. And that's usually how Formula One goes, right? That usually there's a few people at fault. We have this discussion every single podcast. It's like, well, fault and blame. If they just left more room, then that person wouldn't have tagged them because they should have known that then maybe they would have had a little bit of oversteer or understeer and they would have slid out that way. And it's just like, yeah, everything's constantly shifting. It's very rarely someone's 100% fault and blame all on them. And in this circumstance, as I was saying before, if you're launching off a corner, everybody's kind of already in a line anyway, and they're not going to accelerate really hard to that corner and then brake and then accelerate out of it, even if they know that, the lead driver has driven off and has kind of restarted the race. But if you're on a straight, the differential between super fast and basically stopped is so much that the risk was just way higher in this circumstance. And that's not for Bottas to govern. He's just, as you said, doing the best he can to take the advantage of the opportunity that he has and try to protect his lead. But yeah, this was different to every other time that we've done it because of the way that Bottas chose to launch and the way that this track is laid out. And yeah, exactly as you said, that the advantage that he was trying to nullify from the cars behind him. So it was just messy. It's just really messy. And these cars are massive. I always say this. I hit this all the time. Really big cars, as they spin around and if they hit each other, they're really fragile. I mean, except for some reason, Kimi Räikkönen's car, it's totally invulnerable. He seemed to go through the whole race and get involved in every single crash, but he just came out gleaming on the other side. That's amazing. Exactly true.
One of the points that Michael Massey made was that if drivers were blinded a little bit by the rear wing of the car in front, and because everyone was following in a straight line behind the car in front and so close, they couldn't actually see what was going on in front of that car. And he said that could have been solved by not following directly behind, which I guess that makes sense. But he said that was a contributing factor. He also said drivers speeding up, slowing down was a contributing factor. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think Bottas did anything wrong whatsoever. Martin Brundle knew what he was going to do. Bottas knew what he was going to do. Presumably Hamilton knew what Bottas was going to do too, if they've already talked about it. It seems like everyone other than the midfield drivers knew how to handle this. They were all just in the mind of like, we're racing, aren't we? Why aren't we racing? Even after the crash, they asked Carlos Sainz what happened because he injured his hand and they were asking, are you okay? He was like, yeah, it's not good. Everyone thought that we were racing. It turned out we weren't. I was like, no, there was a safety car because you crashed. They didn't not go racing. They did go racing,
no,
but you crashed. That was the problem. Yeah. He seemed quite confused. He seemed to be like, yeah, man, if we're not racing, they should turn that light on earlier. I'm like, no. That's not it at all.
Poor guy who's just had the biggest shock in his life and we're interviewing him afterwards. Exactly. It's like, give him half an hour. He's, there's no way his brain is straight.
But anyway, that was one of the red flags. There was another red flag later, and I thought, obviously on the first start, Bottas from second into P1. On the restart after that red flag, Hamilton from P2 into P1. So boom, done, straight back in. This is how it works. Then there's a red flag later in the race, and you think, here we go. This is Bottas' chance to regain the lead, but not the case. No, couldn't get it done then either. So Hamilton romps on to a victory. Bottas, bit of a weird late phase or mid phase of the race where he was sort of trying to hang on to Hamilton, but then sort of slowly couldn't. Seemed just really annoyed because his qualifying got wrecked by a yellow flag. He made this great jump at the start and then through no fault of his own, lost the had a dodgy restart. Must have been thinking, what have I got to fucking do? And then he says to the team, I want the opposite tyres. Whatever you give Hamilton, give me the opposite. And then he has to pit first. So,
and then they pit him first. The undercut was
They
powerful,
could have still done the right thing by him and said, we know we're going to put you in these tyres and we're still going to put Hamilton on the other tyres. But the circumstances of the race didn't really justify that. And then there was a red flag anyway where they could have changed the tyres. So it didn't really matter. Also,
if you're Hamilton's race engineer or you're Hamilton, you're like, okay, Bottas pitted. What tyres is he on? Are they performing well? They are. Great. I want those ones. That's every pit stop that comes before you. You analyze the data, even if they're not on your team. You look at how those tyres are performing and you go, okay, we were going to go to those ones or we're going to go to the mediums, but the hards look good. Yeah. We have no idea what's going to happen in this race. Let's just stick those ones on. They seem fine. So yeah, it was always going to be difficult for Bottas. Like he's just trying to get anything to be different, which is fair enough. And he tried the undercut. Well, they tried the undercut. I don't think there was ever any chance that Bottas was going to win this race after Hamilton got back in front. Other than reliability, I think that they would have just been like, cool, just stay where you are. Thanks. It's a hot day. Our cars don't follow very well. Your brakes are getting too hot. Just leave it. We can't have tires explode or anything like that. No. And then you do get something random like Lance Stroll getting what seemed like a puncture or something going wrong at the back of his car that didn't seem to be his fault and smashing another, fast, hard crash into the wall. And suddenly we have, another red flag, another restart. So,
and then the steward's trying to get rid of his car, except, it's on fire. And then we'll just spray the fire and put it out. Like, it's still on fire. We can't even find where the fire is. Maybe it's inside the car. Let's rip it to pieces looking for the fire. The scenes, Zach.
Just having it on the crane, like at a really bad angle and like stewards and then also the fire department there, like trying to work out the race marshal's been like, can we just get it over the wall? And the fire brigade are like, could you put the fire out though? Maybe that's really bad.
Quite on fire. It's extremely on fire right now. We can't move it.
Yeah. That car's going in the bin. And they'll be building him a new car. Daddy Stroll will have to find a little bit of money to turn the 3D printers on a little bit longer, to get a fresh new, you know what? They'll just take Perez's car, right?
Exactly. They'll be
Perez
like,
is the one getting a new car.
Pit Perez, and he'll be like, why? Stroll needs a car.
Yeah, just parts. We need more parts, actually.
New rule called car swap.
Well, this, with Stroll's crash, it opened up a podium position, right? Because he was in third at that point.
He was.
Yeah, and Ricciardo's like, hey, I can do this. Maybe this is for me.
Back in this, there was a battle for third between Stroll, Ricciardo, and Albon was sort of not necessarily right there, but he was charging. So yeah, it was always going to be one of those guys. Just to finish off the Hamilton thing, he obviously romped the victory, extends his lead in the Drivers' Championship. He extends his lead in the Constructors' Championship. If Hamilton was a constructor, he would be leading the Constructors' Championship. Crazy stuff. Better luck next time, Bottas. A good news story to see Albon on the podium, but for a little while there, it really did look like it might have been Daniel Ricciardo. That's one of the things that helped keep me awake. But I'm sure, I mean, it gives the commentary team something to talk about. Now we can finally bring up that tattoo story again. Fantastic.
Oh,
let's Google where the local tattoo parlors are. Let's bring it up 100 million times. But anyway, Cyril Abiteboul remains ink-free because Daniel Ricciardo finished P4 and Albon finally gets his first podium. Hamilton not close enough to hit him this time, and he gets it done.
Yeah, he was a relieved boy. I think he knows that he was feeling pressure after... Well, he knows he was feeling pressure. He was feeling pressure after Gasly won the last race, and Albon has been a bit missing in action this season.
Yes, I think that's fair
and
to
has
say.
found a way to take a podium where Verstappen would have been expected to take that one, So good on him. He even thanked the team for sticking with him afterwards. I think that he's going to have to do more of this stuff to keep his position, and Gasly's going to have to continue to make shitty mistakes at the start of the race if he doesn't want that job. Really, Gasly just needs to keep performing well to put pressure on Albon. But Albon's probably got a harder task, which is that he really needs to finish fourth all the time from now on.
I think this is a good talking point because some people are saying, this is going to seal the deal for him staying there next year at Red Bull because now he's proven he can do it. I'm like, but it's one race. I mean, that doesn't prove anything. I mean, Gasly won one race, so why not promote him? It doesn't make any sense. But this was the result that I was sort of flagging last time where I was like, if Albon starts getting a couple of podiums and is always there regularly for the rest of the season, then you might look at keeping him instead of promoting Gasly. But the problem is now for Albon, now that he's done it, if he doesn't do it again, if he goes back to finishing 8th, 9th and 10th for the rest of the season, it's going to even underline even further that was just a fluke. And then he doesn't really have what it takes to deliver that result all the time. He did qualify better, granted. But he needs to do that at all kinds of tracks, under all kinds of conditions, turn nothing weekends into great weekends. He needs to do more of that.
Yeah, and look, if this was any other sister or B team, they would probably take the full season view. But this is Red Bull, and they seem rarely to do that. So it might. I think all of that rational thinking applies to other teams, but Helmut Marko and Christian Horner might just be like, you know what, we don't like you anymore, Albon. Back you go, because it's just all interchangeable, right? Maybe we'll just rest you. You look a little tired. Go down to AlphaTauri for half a season and just find yourself again. And we'll just put Pierre Gasly in the Red Bull. Have a spell. Exactly. So, if this is a normal team or a normal couple of teams, I think that we would apply that. I think this is total conjecture, but it must be weird at AlphaTauri to constantly live in the shadow of Red Bull. And I think that's partly why they wanted to change their name and just kind of be like, we're our own thing, by the way, completely different, color scheme and livery. And we're going to be our own people, and we're going to up our own marketing so that people identify us as a thing and have strong characters, and not just be like, oh yeah, they're just the junk that Red Bull didn't want, or they're the next up and coming drivers that will eventually get promoted. AlphaTauri are working hard to be their own thing.
You guys are the brand that win races, win championships, and try to sell fizzy energy drinks. We're different. We're the team that's here to sell shorts and socks.
Yeah, and jackets seemingly as well.
And jackets.
I get a lot of Instagram ads for their jackets. But yeah, they're the Italian racing team with the racing blood and the racing pedigree. They consider themselves as the real non-marketing team. They're the real racing team. There's no reason why anybody who would look at AlphaTauri now who didn't know anything about Formula One and be like, yeah, they're a Red Bull marketing operation. I think people wouldn't really think that right away. So,
right.
Yeah, I think maybe Christian Horner did say that this week, that they consider AlphaTauri as a sister team, which would be interesting ongoing to see if Red Bull have to kind of put some downward pressure on AlphaTauri now to be like, okay, thanks for that, but we don't really need to have you finishing above us. We don't want that, actually. Could you finish more down in like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th again? That would be really good. Because they don't want to compete with them, right? Because they need every single point. Max Verstappen needs every single one of those points. So it does. Can you think of a time where we've had, two teams that are, brother sister teams essentially, but neither of them is a manufacturer? I don't think we've had that scenario in Formula One, at least while I've been watching it.
They're probably the only one. I mean, but they have the most explicit, sibling relationship out of two teams that I know of. And I mean, I'm sure there's someone will bring up an example and say, but in the 70s, there was this team and that team, like, I don't know, sure. But I mean, in the time I've been watching, there's been no other teams that have got that close symbiotic relationship as Red Bull and AlphaTauri do.
Yeah,
That's what
so
I'm
at some
trying to say.
point,
But anyway.
if AlphaTauri keep doing really well, they're on the right trajectory, and Red Bull doesn't seem to be getting doesn't have a black budget where they just get as much money as they want, and the spend caps are coming in, all that kind of stuff. I don't see any reason why AlphaTauri couldn't outperform Red Bull. They seemingly have different setups, so why not?
In theory, yes, but I just don't really think that that's the case. Because first of all, one of them would have to beat Max Verstappen.
And he's Jesus incarnate,
and then if you do, guess what's going to happen? You're going to go into and you're going to become Max Verstappen's teammate, and then you're going to have that second driver curse put on you. So good luck to you, matey Mo. Got 2 more talking points, Zach. Do you want to round this race off a little bit with these 2 last things?
Where do you want to go? Do you want to go Ferrari?
Go Ferrari. Double point finish at Mugello in their 1,000th Grand Prix.
Yeah.
If you
how many
offered
people
that to them
finished the
before
race?
They would take it.
Yeah, I mean, how many people actually finished? 12.
But how
12.
worse would it be if there was only 12 cars that finished and both of them finished out of the points? That would be even worse.
Yes, there was an absolute risk at one time on the last restart where I was like, Ferrari could finish 11th and 12th today. There is no doubt. And then I looked at it, I was like, Grosjean is still here.
But Grosjean is still there, yeah.
And Russell...
And poor old George Russell still can't get a point. He was looking close, and even a penalty to Kimi Räikkönen wasn't quite enough to get him in there. But boy, 12 cars finished and George Russell still can't get a point, man. He's not getting any luck.
What a day. Kimi Räikkönen, though, finished in front of Vettel and had a couple of little scraps with him. So it was like... And to the point where I think David Croft was like... no, maybe Martin Brundle was like, Räikkönen's not a bad guy to follow behind, you pick up some ways to defend. It's like, we're talking about Sebastian Vettel here. He's almost as old as Kimi Räikkönen. Like, there is no, I don't think Sebastian Vettel has anything left to learn from Kimi Räikkönen. There is, what a weird, utterly senseless statement. But good for Kimi. It's races like this where you want someone like Kimi Räikkönen because he's bullish. There was a moment on the radio as well where they were, what did he yelled, he screamed at them for some reason. Like, he asked for some information and they didn't have it, and he screamed back at them or something. I can't remember what it was.
You're going to have to narrow it down. Kimi screaming on the radio? Like, give me more info.
Yeah, exactly.
No, there was one about the penalty where he got a penalty for...
Oh, yeah, but what for?
What? For what? For what?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, and you know what occurred to me at that moment? I was like, you know what? Kimi Räikkönen at Haas with Gunther Steiner. Think of the Drive to Survive episodes. Oh, yeah. The dream.
Please, someone make that happen.
Like, just the silences of those two staring at each other, then Gunther being like, look, Kimi, I just think, you make bad decisions sometimes. Then Kimi just pausing and then being like, don't tell me what to do. Like, you don't know anything. And just walking out. Oh, great.
Gunther would just be like, well, I think you're a fucking idiot. And then Kimi would be like, I don't even fucking think about you at all.
Yes. Who the fuck are you?
I can write the scripts if anyone wants to dramatize that.
Great.
The thing about Kimi, and I mean, I think the reason why he's done okay this week, why he's Monza and Spa, those kinds of tracks are the ones that he shows up for, right? It's the other ones that he thinks are just bullshit Mickey Mouse tracks that he's like, I don't give a fuck about this. If I crash out or I'm slow, well, too bad. But there are some tracks where he just switches on and you see a different guy. And I think the opportunity to race at Mugello, a one-off thing, all the drivers are buzzing about it, saying, I love this track. I hope we come back here. So fast, so great. I think he uses that as motivation. That's one of the things that motivates him is great tracks like that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Old school, to use that word.
He is of the old school.
Speaking of motivation, maybe we can move on to our last point, which is Lewis Hamilton making, to date, his most pointed and blatant political point, I guess you could say, with his shirt. Normally he wears, even though all the other drivers wear an End Racism t-shirt, he usually wears a Black Lives Matter shirt, but not this week, Zach.
No, he was making quite a pointed statement about arresting, the call for arresting the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. This goes hand in hand with Naomi Osaka wearing the names of people who have been killed by the police, black people who have been killed by the police, on her face mask that she wore. She wore, I think, 6 or 7 different ones in each one of her ties in the US Open. Each one of her matches, she came out with a face mask on that you have to wear apparently as you're walking through onto the court. And that kind of media attention is doing exactly what Black Lives Matter is trying to do, just keep things in the news. And Lewis Hamilton, quite rightly, has come out with a stronger, more pointed political statement. I think he almost missed the opportunity as well. I think he was running late and he almost missed the kneeling before the race. But thankfully he didn't. And Formula One is looking into whether this, was looking into the actual charge that it's an inflammatory comment or that it's not appropriate for the track.
They were making noises along the lines of, we're going to investigate this because we don't allow political messaging. I believe that investigation won't actually go ahead, but they're investigating the actual clauses and the rules and regulations around it because there are some things that they allow and don't allow, I suppose. And I guess the question is, where's the boundary? And if they're going to have a conversation with Lewis about this, they're going to have to make it super clear. Here's the sort of thing you can do. Here's the sort of thing you can't do. Obviously, I support Lewis, and I think the message is 100% on. I want justice for, that family and all the other hundreds of families, and that's been a very high-profile case, the Breonna Taylor one. I'm sure you do too. I do think that it's going to be important to have a line that can't be crossed, though. And it's easy to say, I support Hamilton in this case. We probably all do. But I think that it is problematic to just allow anybody to do whatever they want for lots of reasons. And I mean, that might sound harsh or whatever, but let me explain. Someone might say, well, if F1 goes to a race that has, we're in a country with questionable human rights records, what's to stop a driver making a protest by wearing a t-shirt that calls that out? Of course, that's an easy one to support. It's an easy one to back. But what if we go to Russia and a driver just decides, I'm going to wear a t-shirt that says Putin is a pedophile?
I love pussy riot.
Exactly. I mean, the cases you need to think of aren't the ones that are easy to support. They're the ones that are difficult to support. And the correct or not, like it or not, the sport has taken an apolitical view, and it's always been, to more or less degree, an apolitical sport for that reason. They have signed on to things like the Olympic Charter of, it's not human rights, I forget the name of it, but there's an Olympic Charter for no political statements that are propaganda, nothing that supports racism, all those kind of things. The obvious things. So I think...
Or obvious to you and me and hopefully our listeners.
Yeah, hopefully. There needs to be some boundary where things are not acceptable. I think this is fine. I mean, it's obviously meant to be provocative. It's obviously meant to get people talking. That's great. And I 100% support Lewis's intention and his effort to raise the profile of this issue, because I think it should be. But I think that this won't be the end of it, but I don't think anything will happen to Hamilton in this instance. No.
I hope that his colleagues continue to support him in this as well. Collective action, we saw it in the NBA and the women's NBA. In fact, the women's NBA was first. They didn't take the night off. They were striking. They were making a joint political statement. And I've seen a few people, saying like, oh, is Lewis Hamilton not going to race the next race? Then it's like, well, it's not, again, he's not the only guy responsible for driving this matter into the public discourse. There are a group of people who apparently feel as strongly, if you look at their interviews and their statements. So it's on everybody in Formula One to make political statements that they think are worthwhile. But I couldn't agree with you more, Rod. There are some things that, we want to look at the messaging of, and those aren't just the things that I might not necessarily believe in, but it's about trying to make sure that, how do I say this, that makes sense, that isn't just like encroaching on free speech. It is an entertainment product, and Formula One is a platform for people to promote lots of things. And I think that it is more effective when there are joint statements from drivers, teams, the sport, all of that kind of stuff. If Novak Djokovic came out onto court wearing a face mask that says all vaccines are bullshit and they're giving people, diseases, and it's
fake.
Exactly. and it's all part of a deep state for Bill Gates to implant microchips into us and QAnon, I think I probably have a problem with that. And I can see why there's a discussion that needs to be had about like, well, why is that message any different to, saying arrest the cops that murdered Breonna Taylor? Well, it's about trying to provide balance to an argument that might not necessarily be there. So I don't know the way forward. But
the thing is that the sport has not solved the problem, but the sport's avoided the problem by saying we're not going to touch anything that's anything in that field at all. We're not going to go there. Now, obviously, when there's a big support that most people would, if there's a big cause that most people would support, it seems like, well, what's the problem? The problem is if someone does go to the other side of the pool, how do you penalize them? What rule are they breaking? What are they doing wrong? If you can make an argument for, an extreme point of view that's held by one person, why can't another person make an equally strong point of view? Where, it becomes unenforceable in that point. So that's more the problem. Yeah. Hamilton was also asked about the timing, where they said, was this a reaction to anything in particular? Because the Breonna Taylor case has been going for a while. Obviously the US Open, action, like you just pointed out, was potentially something that Lewis was, looking to add his voice to and add his, influence to that number. But Lewis said something along the lines of, look, I've been trying to get this shirt for a while, but I do wonder whether that criticism of him not sitting at a race or something might have triggered something in him to be like, you think I'm not doing enough? I'll fucking show you who's not doing enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, but it is interesting to think about.
No, I think he's, the way I look at Lewis Hamilton, the way he's comporting himself and the way he's trying to go about this in a way that he's not trying to create two Lewis Hamiltons in the world. He's not trying to be like, there is me, the racer, and you can ignore all the other stuff and just love me for my racing and my team and my country. And then there is my political activism. And I think that he's working hard to make sure there is no separation between those two things. And that's really difficult. A lot of other people in the public eye do those things. They're like, well, I'm just going to appear in whatever films I want, or do, shop wherever I want, or do all these things, and then also be an activist on the side. It's like Lewis Hamilton he's one guy, and I think you see it with John Boyega as well. There is one person you see there, and you cannot separate those two things. I think that's uncomfortable for some people. I think it's uncomfortable. They would love to just love Lewis Hamilton, the winning British race driver, and not have to think about systemic racism that he's fighting against and that he has come up against as well. I think people would like to blank that out. And as I said, I applaud him for making sure those messages are united. I had another point on that, and it's just totally off my mind as I went through that rant. I think
the other thing. Go ahead. If you've got it now, go ahead.
No, I mean the other thing I was going to say is that this sport is. I hate it when sport is like, well, it's not politicized sport. It's like, it's fucking bullshit, because Heineken, when you drink, never drive, that's politicized. That is not just that's a public service announcement in the guise of advertising. That is politically motivated. That is telling people, it's like, you know what? We don't think you should be drinking and driving. However, our sport is still going to be sponsored by alcohol. It's totally politicized in all of its facets, and the way that the way it tries to be apolitical means that it gets taken advantage of. The countries that do have questionable human rights histories and actions can use Formula One to sport wash and often whitewash their country. That's not okay either. And I think that Formula One likes to be able to hold its hand up and say, like, well, we're just entertainment. We're just a sport. You can't hold us responsible for anything like that. It's like, well, why have you got, why are you making movements to be more green? That's an environmental political statement.
Yeah, true.
So don't come at me with this bullshit F1 that you are apolitical, because it's not true.
Yeah. Don't come at me. Well, I feel like this, we could literally do another whole hour just about all this stuff. But anyway, we might wrap it up there. We'll pause on that for now. We can talk about it again another time if we have to. But we should maybe just lift the tone a little bit, lighten things up a little bit for ourselves, if no one else.
Oh, and speaking of going up the rankings.
Let's get into the fantasy focus, where we look at our fantasy league. Do you want to do, I've got the league. Do you want to do the race?
You've got the league. Yeah, I'll pull the race up.
If not, I can switch.
No, I switched already. It's loading. I've got the cog.
Love it.
Oh shit, this is even better. So, have I chosen? No, it's not better. Sorry, Tuscany. I had Italy. You know how they get confused all the time? I feel like, actually, up until like yesterday, if you went to the Formula One website, it was like the Italian Grand Prix and the Italian Grand Prix. You're like, they can't both be the Italian Grand Prix. Pick one. So, Tuscan Grand Prix, here we are. Oh, look at that. Team number 1, Romeo e Giulietta by Vincitore. It's almost like he lent into the Italianness of this race weekend and got 194 points. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of points. Congratulations.
So it's just all the points.
What an asshole. Good name from Lachlan Sear there with 171. Still a good performance. Jumped up 4 slots there. And just want to be my bro, Emerson. I mean, Emerson Susan O'Donnell, this is how you want to do it, right? You just want to beat your bro. That's a standard situation. Very close this weekend for podium spots, with people finishing 169, 168, 166, below the 170 that it took to get on the podium. I'm not going to call you out, because I believe in you that next weekend you'll be on the podium. So how do things go in the league, Rod?
in the league, in first place, powering into first place, Romeo y Giulietta by Vincitore, and then a new entrant into the top three with Team Gross Jeans by George Digby Smith, followed closely by another new entry on the podium, Daniel Avocado by Steph, on equal points, but knocking out of the podium positions Hypothesis by Hypothesis. So it's really getting spicy in that second and third place for the overall league. I know that I did very, very averagely myself this race, and indeed I'm just treading water right near the back of the league. So time for me to go to plan C, I think, for my league strategy. How are you going? Haven't looked.
Up 3 positions to
Still
spot
very
17.
well? Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, so it'll be good
Get
if
into the
both...
top 10, I swear to God.
I'm going to win this thing, mate. Here I go. Going to make some more changes. It'd be nice if I could get, both Force Indias and both McLarens to finish a race. That would really do my team a good piece of work there. So yeah, but got to take the wins where you can get them, and 17th is not too bad.
Yeah, I suppose. I look forward one day to also doing well. I'm into I've joined the Ton Club. I've just crossed 1,000 points. Person behind me in the league, they're on 900 and something. I'm on 1,000, so I'm in the 4 digits, baby.
Well done. It's nice up here in the 4 digits.
Let's see you're smiling now. Let's see if you're still smiling after the super quiz.
We will accept a couple of questions.
Should one only win one? Would one want to have won that one in round one?
Can you repeat the question?
All right, Zach, I went the extra mile this week because new race, Formula One's never raced at Mugello before, the Tuscan Grand Prix. Social media, YouTube, Facebook, everything was slammed with drivers and racers doing track guides, saying, here's the track, here's what it looks like, here's where you turn, here's where you brake, blah, 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 blah. So I've got audio clips from 6 different races. I've picked out a couple of corners, a little highlight from their track guide. Going to play it. You're going to tell me who the mystery person is. You feel up to the challenge?
Yes, let's do this. This is great.
Number 1, here we go. Who's this?
Long ride going uphill, very important to stay on the right there to prepare the left and right just after it. Also here it's important to sacrifice the left-hander to have as much speed as possible on this right one.
Who is that, Zach?
It's Charles Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc.
I watched this one. And I remember thinking, did he record this in the cafeteria? Like, did they call him on his phone and he was like, yeah, I don't know, let me just tell you from, I don't need to watch the video, I'll just tell you by heart, and they had to match it up.
Did it to mess with you. He knows you love ambient noise sounds.
Oh my God, it's the opposite of ASMR. He has a nice voice though. I like his accent.
That's true. Well, this next one has lots of ambient noise sounds. Tell me who this driver is.
This will be flat out Saturday. Take my little Ferrari flag on my left-hand side to see the wind direction before entering turn 10.
Who's that?
It's George Russell.
It is bloody George Russell, only just commentating his way around the track while he's driving it. If he sounded in a car, if he sounded out of breath, just commentating a track as he drives it. Also, if you watch this one, he's calling out like, yeah, look at that flag up there. I'm like, what flag? And they had to actually zoom in on it with a big red circle to be like, that flag over there in the distance that looks like it's 10 kilometers away. He looks at that to see what the wind's doing. Incredible stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm going to have to find that clip because
that is a good one to watch. That's a good one to watch. All right, we've got 4 more. They're going to keep getting harder. A few easy ones to start with, but they're going to slowly get harder. What racer is this one, Zach?
Whoa! This is insane. This is flat as well? Whoa! What? My goodness, this is nuts.
Who is that?
The first line, I thought it was Karan Chandok, but I'm pretty sure, you know what? It's Nico Rosberg, and I think I can tell that it is, because that sounds like any of his YouTube video thumbnails.
It does. Yeah, that's straight from his YouTube. Recorded at his home sim setup. I don't know. That's his first go driving around the track. Wow, it's so cool. It's just so cool, man. Yeah, it's just like so cool.
Yeah. God, he's such a nerd.
Well, you're 3 for 3.
Thank you.
I better make these a little bit harder.
Only downhill from
Zach,
here.
What racer is this?
Trochę szybsza, 130-140 na godzinę prawy, atakujemy tarki, wypuszczamy jak najbardziej, wykorzystujemy całą szerokość toru, dojeżdżamy do bardzo szybkiej sekwencji zakrętu.
No idea what any of those words were, or even if they were words, but Zach, what racer is that?
Jeez Louise, that could have been Spanish. I think
could have been. Don't think it was, but it could have been.
Sergio Cheeky Perez?
No, that is Robert Kubica speaking in his native Polish, I think.
Polish.
Don't quote me on it, though. No idea. Again, I tried to pick out a clip, like stop talking, and then I'll do a clip, and then clip it where you stop talking again, but he just didn't. His whole lap, he was just completely, he was on the accelerator, and his mouth did not stop either. Robert Kubica, well, look,
to Poland
you're still
for mistaking your beautiful language.
I think I've heard enough of Robert Kubica to know that that's him talking, but I wouldn't have been able to get it. Like if he was speaking English, wouldn't have made any more sense. It's all just down to picking out that nasal accent. Okay, so again, like I said, they're going to get harder, but I want you to have a stab at this one, and if you can't get it, I'll give you a clue. Who is this?
We get into the Arrabbiata 1 and then Arrabbiata 2, everything basically flat out. So you can imagine the amount of G-forces the cars are going to be generating through those corners. It's going to be just incredible.
Who's that, mate?
Oh, jeez Louise.
This one, boy.
It
could be surprised if you...
Is it Antonio Giovinazzi?
No, it's not Antonio Giovinazzi. Do you want the clue?
Yeah, give me that clue.
So think a blast from the past. Think the game Rock Band, a competitor to that game.
Oh my god, it's Esteban Guitarjero Gutierrez, really?
Guitarjero Gutierrez, that's right. He's the Mercedes reserve driver. He was in the sim doing a lap of Mugello.
Who knew? How nice.
Good to hear from you, mate. How you been, old mate Gutierrez?
Oh, well done. It's the way you said Arrabbiata. I was like,
yes.
Well said. Like that's a nice role. I was like, I wonder if that's an Italian.
I wonder if that's an Italian.
We'll just quickly say that Crofty thought that he was told that Arrabbiata means hungry, angry. I'm pretty sure. Michael Laminato immediately on Twitter was like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah. He went ballistic on Twitter. I'm sure he's still like rocking back and forth in a corner somewhere just saying Arrabbiata. It doesn't mean hungry. It doesn't mean hungry.
No.
Poor guy.
Sounds delicious though, doesn't it? Arrabbiata. It's like some sort of soft bread with cheese on it, maybe. That feels like what it is.
Don't know. But I won't claim that I do know. That's the difference. Okay, last one, Zach. What racer is this?
Arriving to the next chicane, and that is another left-right, but it's a bit faster. It's a little bit faster, a little bit more flowing. And after for the Casanova Savelli down to all the fun. Is a lot downhill.
Big character, amazing background music. Zach, what racer is that?
I mean, that sounded really Italian.
Yep, it was very Italian.
It was really Italian. Was that Giovinazzi?
No, it wasn't. I've got a clue for this one if you want as well.
Give me the clue.
Formula One hasn't really raced at Mugello before, but there was lots of talk about the comparable track times between Formula One and MotoGP.
Oh, is it Valentino Rossi?
Valentino Rossi.
Hey.
Yes, that's
Good
it.
one. Oh, well
yeah,
played.
we got there.
That was really fun. I loved that. I could do
Good, I'm
more.
glad. Because, I mean, it's not like I put heaps of time into I put, I don't know, half an hour or something to that. But it's fun. It just mixes it up to hear different sounds.
Yeah. Nice one. I really like it.
Because I'm average and you're above average. But between us, we need all the help that we can get.
We need all the help that we can get. Exactly. And the quiz is a difficult one, but a nice new track. Look at all the many varied voices of the Formula One as well, including some people who aren't even in Formula One, although Valentino Rossi.
Exactly.
They've always talked about, could he be in new Formula One? Actually, speaking of motorbiking, I saw an e-bike racing thing came up on my television whilst I was flicking around the sports channels this weekend. It's weird, man. They don't make much sound, those e-bikes. Very weird to watch.
Huh. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Are they fast?
Yeah, they are fast. I mean, really fast. Lots of e-racing. Lewis Hamilton's got that new.
I was going to say, we didn't even talk about this.
Racing thing. That was cool.
It's not huge news, but they call it, I think it's Extreme E, and it looks like it's off-road racing. And instead of one driver switching between two cars, you have to have a male driver and a female driver, which is pretty cool.
Oh, I didn't know that. I read the headlines, obviously, and didn't read the press release.
Pretty sure I'm right about that. So, yeah, I mean, I hope, now that I've said it, I hope I'm not wrong, but anyway.
That's true.
Yeah, boy, not as much as I do. No, I think that's right. So yeah, a good thing. And he's launching his own team. So he's one step closer, Zach, to your dream of him running a team and being a team manager.
I cannot wait. Lewis Hamilton, team principal, and also all-round political activist. I love that.
Yes, exactly. Well, I feel like this moves us nicely into our final thoughts, Zach. So it could be related to that. It could be related to something else. But do you have a final thought to offer up?
I didn't have one prepared this week. I feel like we talked about all the things that I might have brought up as final thoughts around then. Should we just get rid of safety car restarts and just have like red flag proper restarts? Tires weren't a thing this weekend again, which meant that we got a little sprint race. But funnily enough, that the little sprint race we got at the end wasn't very entertaining either. All of the overtakes we were kind of all hoping would happen didn't really happen, and everybody just kind of finished 2 seconds apart, which I think shows that whilst you can have a really exciting track, I still don't think all of these exciting tracks were built for these Formula One cars in mind. And I think it's the cars that need to change more drastically to make Formula One more competitive, as opposed to all of the other things. I'm just becoming more and more concrete in that thinking. And maybe I need to speak to more Formula One people, but I really think the cars are the problem and not the rest of the sport.
Maybe, but what about this? Do you want to see the Tuscan Grand Prix or some variation of a name for the Mugello race coming back either next year or just in future? Do you want Formula One to come back here? Do you want to see it again? Would you watch another race here?
Yeah, I think I would, because I think it is a really challenging track. It's really, and that's what, it has gravel traps and stuff. There was all the talk coming into the race and qualifying as well. It was like, oh, the track limits, what are we going to do? It's like, you know what we did? We put high curbs and we put gravel on the other side. So that's the limit. Do you want to drive on the gravel? You can. And sometimes it's not even going to be that much slower, but it's risky. And then it's going to fuck your tires as well. So up to you, mate. And it seems like lots of people didn't want to do anything with that. They didn't want to go near the gravel. So it was nice having a really fast, competitive, tricky track that threw up things that I don't think people were ready for. Like, you can practice on the simulator, all that kind of stuff, but when it comes down to the start and getting 3, 4, 5 cars into a corner, yeah, the simulator teaches you jack about any of that.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to come back here again and just give it another chance. I'm not sure you can tell from one race, like, oh yeah, Formula One here is going to be amazing all the time. There was talk coming in that it was going to be a snoozer of a race and it was going to be very processional. But then on the other hand, there were people saying, nah, Mercedes haven't been tested. Their long run in the heat, they're going to wear through their tires. They didn't have to do that because they stopped 100 million times. But I'm not sure that we can tell just from that race whether it would be good, great, or bad, or worse. But I'd be keen to come back here again if the opportunity
tracks
arises.
Yeah, exactly. Same. I think tracks that introduce the element of a mistake for the driver being punishing. That's what people think about with Formula One.
Yeah,
I think maybe not the number one thing, but what unites all of the big new shit tracks, huge runoff zones where they're a bit safer. But, someone makes a mistake, they're like, no, well, I'll just rejoin behind the guy I was trying to overtake. Oh. But when you think about Formula One, it's like cars are fragile. And if you make one tiny error, the race is over. That's Formula One. That's the risk, is that you have to be perfect to win a race. And nowadays it's like, well, let's throw the cars around and see. And maybe that's why we see way younger drivers in the sport these days, because you don't need as much experience to be really successful, because the risks to failing are not as great. Margin for error is a bit wider these days.
Yeah, totally. It's time for me to offer a final thought, and I do need to do some explaining. I tweeted out something which has gotten a whole bunch of people scratching their heads, including you, Zach, so I need to go over it. The timing tower during qualifying. This whole time, I've been thinking that this made perfect sense. It makes sense in my head. And I tweeted it thinking this is going to be uncontroversial and uncomplicated, but it turns out...
get 400 retweets.
Turns out no one understands what I'm talking about. So, in qualifying, right? Follow me here.
Yep.
In Q1, the bottom 5 drivers are eliminated. Q2, the next 5 drivers are eliminated. To spice things up, to create some drama or tension or whatever, FOM introduced this thing called the driver at risk. Now, they always pick the driver who is above the 5 drivers that's going to be eliminated. And in my brain, that's broken and wrong, because I see it out of the corner of my eye, and if it's got a photo of Ricardo, I'm like, oh, Ricardo's going to get eliminated. And then I have to look again and go, no, he's safe. He's in the safe zone. He's not in the danger zone. He's in the safe zone. What needs to happen is someone below him needs to go faster to knock him down. But until that happens, he's safe. And the drivers that are at risk of getting eliminated are all the drivers below him and not him. So it's just in my head, it's broken. It doesn't make any sense. They need to change the wording. They need to change it altogether. But the drivers that are at risk are the ones that are in the elimination zone, the bottom 5, whether that's, 16 to 20 or 11 to 15, not the driver above that. I understand what they're trying to say, but it communicates something that's like a second or third priority point compared to these drivers are getting knocked out. If they don't do something, they're fucking gone. That needs to be what's communicated. So I think it's broken. I think it needs to be changed. And I didn't think anyone would be confused when I tweeted that, but apparently they were. I hope that
I think it's because everybody who's in the elimination zone, we already know they're at risk of being eliminated because they're in the elimination zone. Yeah, because they're all in a special box and they're all there in the section called elimination zone.
But I don't think it says that on the screen.
I think how does it demark them then? I'm pretty sure it does, doesn't it? No, maybe not. Anyway, I think that to me, the risk thing, that's how risk works. Like you're in the safe zone until you aren't. So if I'm standing on the edge of a cliff and it's like, well, if nothing changes, no. If I'm standing on the edge of the cliff and there's nothing happens, then I'm safe. Except it's still risky out here because if something changes, I'm going to fall off this cliff. Does that make sense?
I mean, I'm not saying that's not risky. I think, I don't know. I was trying to think, what could they change it to that would keep me happy, but also make more sense. I was thinking of it more like a bubble, to be like, these 2 drivers are on the bubble because this one that's just in the elimination zone clearly has some pace and might jump out and would pop the other guy back in. But the fact that they're explicitly calling out, look at this driver, pay attention to this driver, because if several other things hypothetically happen, he may end up in the elimination zone. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to get eliminated, just that he might drop down. It just doesn't make any sense to me, to be honest. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, if you're standing on the edge of the cliff, you're at risk, but so is someone standing 5 meters behind you. And so is someone sitting in their car near the cliff. I mean, there's risk in everything. So I just don't the real risk is if the guys standing on the edge of the cliff don't move back, someone's going to come along and push them in. You know what I mean? It's totally different. It's like saying, I'm going to push one guy off the cliff. The other guy, I'm not going to push off the cliff, but there's equal risk between those 2 guys. And that's just not true.
Yes. I think that it probably presupposes that the people the 5 people who are already in the elimination zone are not going to get out of that zone, which is wrong.
Don't say that.
Pardon?
Say that then.
Yeah, no, I know but that's the thing. Like that's the I can see why you and I know that everybody in qualifying is at risk. The people who are down in 5th position are at the most, the bottom 5 positions have the most risk because it's like at this point you're all fucked. But right towards the end of qualifying, I think that graphic works only at the end, like towards the end of qualifying, where those the people that right in the elimination zone can't improve. It's like you're done. You're not getting any out of anywhere here. But I think your point is sound in that I think that graphic could be improved. And I think they've picked the least hard thing to do, which is like, well, let's just take the guy who's just out and be like, oh no, he might fall into the elimination zone, when really we should be talking about those bottom 5 people being like, oh my God, they all need to improve really hard. And if they improve, then the next bottom 5 people are all, I think let me support you in this statement, which is that qualifying is dumb for both Q1 and Q2 because the commentators and the sport watches out for provisional pole way too much. It watches out for all of these drivers who were never going to be eliminated in Q1 or Q2. And it's like, Lewis Hamilton's at the fastest time in Q1, but no one gives because it doesn't matter. What the hell? Who cares if anybody's going purple? We need to flip the script completely and be like, who's doing the best out of the shit guys? Like, let's just not even show any of the leaders on camera. Let's just look at the Haas's and the Williams and give them the time on screen so that we can really focus on how much those guys need to improve. Because even all the graphics of like how much they need to improve and how their time is versus what time is like, is that versus the cutoff? Is that time good enough to get them out of the bottom 5? Like that, there's so much information missing.
Yeah.
I'm with you, man.
We could do better. It doesn't sound like you're with me. You being like a little bit like, nah, I don't really agree with you, Rod, but let's just keep it friendly. Let's just say that I am.
I agree that the graphic needs to be improved. I don't agree with the average. I think the at-risk thing makes sense to everybody except you.
I don't understand how it makes sense to anyone, but anyway.
Maybe the whole world's crazy and I'm the sane one.
Maybe. And also, I feel like lately the end of the show has turned into like us fixing Formula One for some reason. It's like, oh man. I mean, I'm sure people who've got other things to listen to or work to get back to or whatever, they just want us to wrap up and they can go about their day.
This is a long one.
Well, it has been, but not for this particular reason. But anyway, we'll try not to make that a habit. I mean, it feels like, what I'm saying is the last 3 or 4 episodes, it feels like we get to the end of the show, then we spend 10 minutes just trying to like brainstorm about what can we do better. It's like, I'm just saying, okay, let's make that a habit. Let's save that for a bonus show or something, maybe.
Let's do it. What was the other idea we had? I can't remember that we were going to plan out the whole thing.
The Olympics.
Oh,
the Olympics, which, again, it caught my eye again. Formula One have signed the Olympic charter for whatever. That's interesting.
Let's do that show.
Good.
Let's do
I mean,
that
it's another little bit of traction already reduced. Okay, Zach. Next race is, well, there's a week off. And then I think the next race is Russia, if I'm not mistaken. A good track for Valtteri Bottas. You'll want to follow everything that we do on Twitter. We're at Superlicense. You can join our Facebook group if you think Facebook sucks. We make it a little bit less sucky with our Facebook group, the Superlicense Universe. You can email us at superlicencepodcast@gmail.com. You can visit the website, superlicense.com.au, if you want news from a year and a half ago. Zach, anything I've forgotten?
No, buy some merch. Great way to support the show. If you are on the website.
If you want old designs, actually, if you want new designs, let me know what you want and I'll design it and make some new merch. And thanks to everyone who's supporting us on Patreon. Lately we've had to invest in some stuff. We've had to invest in some gear, microphones. Zach needs some software. So, that's all being, supported and, taken care of. We don't have to dip into our own pockets and do more damage to our credit cards. My mortgage is still getting paid, thankfully, but, that's all thanks to the supporters on Patreon. I know we haven't been able to do much bonus content and stuff lately, but your support is known and felt. And if you've been listening to the show for, we've done 170 something episodes. If you've been listening this whole time and you've never thought about joining the Patreon, maybe go check it out. Or if you can't do that, and that's totally fine, go and leave us a review on the platform of choice that you listen to podcasts on. Go and leave us a review. You're invested in the show by now. You know you're invested in the show. You listen to 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 of them. Go and leave us a review.
Perfect. Yes, please. Do that.
Great. Perfect. Thanks for that. I feel I need to catch my breath. I feel like I was talking. I said all the words.
Well, until next time.
Until next time. Zach. Go ahead. You can do it.
No, I don't know what you say. Okay. Rod, then until next time in Russia, I've been Zach.
And I'm still Rod.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah.
I'm out of the job. You've replaced me.
Oh, that's so... I've got I feel like stress sweat on the back of my neck. And I was like, what does he say?